So I'm going to just give my impressions of Battlefield 5 and what I think of it. And I want to play this clip of American Krogan. I'm not going to use this whole video because that would be very, very lazy of me. But there's this one section of the game that I really have issues with. And I wanted to use him explaining this because he goes into such detail of how inaccurate and bad the game is. And I'm gonna also give my opinion of the game as well. But I just wanted to use this clip of American Krogan explaining the Norwegian campaign or the Norwegian story in Battlefield 5 and why it's so bad and inaccurate. So take it off, American Krogan.
The worst offender by far in the campaign is the mission about a Norwegian mother and daughter who destroy Germany's ability to produce heavy water, an essential component in the German efforts to develop an atomic bomb. The mother is captured by the Germans after a team of British commandos is killed in their attempt to destroy the facility themselves. The daughter then skis into the area and rescues her mother. Then, together, they sabotage the facility themselves. Upon their escape, though, they are cornered on a bridge by the Germans. Knowing that there is still a shipment of heavy water on its way to Germany, the mother implores her daughter to take a set of documents to a rendezvous point, where I assume British or Allied intelligence agents are waiting. I don't really know because the game never indicated. In any event, the mother throws her daughter off the bridge. The daughter then battles her way through more German troops, falls off a cliff into freezing water, and begins to lose consciousness from hypothermia. Somehow she makes it to a cabin in the woods, where a German soldier is waiting. She physically overpowers him, strangles him, and then passes out from exhaustion. She wakes up and reads her mother's notes and decides to undertake the mission to destroy the heavy water shipments on her own, since there was no one there at the rendezvous point. The daughter succeeds in destroying most of the shipments, and then her mother sacrifices herself in order to sink a German submarine carrying the very last shipment of heavy water. The problem with this scenario is that it's a blatant lie. It's obviously based on the Allies' plan to cripple the Norwegian Veermark plant in 1943, which was being used by Germany to produce heavy water. But DICE's version of events completely writes the real-life Norwegian commandos out of their own story. The crippling of the Veermark plant was orchestrated by the Combined Operations Headquarters starting in October 1942. The plan originally consisted of two parts. The first, Operation Grouse, would drop a group of Norwegian commandos into the area as an advance force. Later on, a team of British engineers would land in the area via military gliders to attack the plant itself. This was Operation Freshman. On October 19, 1942, a four-man team of Norwegian commandos parachuted into the region. They skied over a considerable distance to the Veermark plant, where their job was to memorize the layout and gather intelligence. On November 19, 1942, Operation Freshman commenced. Two airspeed Horsa gliders, towed by Handley Page Halifax bombers, each carrying 2 pilots and 15 Royal Engineers of the 9th Field Company, 1st British Airborne Division, took off from England and headed off to Norway. Now, the towing of gliders had always been hazardous, but in this case it was made worse by the long flying distance to Norway and poor weather conditions, which severely restricted visibility. One of the Halifax tugs crashed into a mountain, killing all 7 aboard. Its glider was able to cast off, but crashed nearby, resulting in several more casualties. The other Halifax eventually arrived at the vicinity of the landing zone. Although the weather conditions had substantially improved by then, it was still impossible to locate the exact landing zone, owing to the failure of the link between the ground and aircraft beacons. With fuel running low, the pilot decided to abort the operation and return to base. Shortly afterwards, however, they encountered heavy turbulence, and the tow line snapped. The glider made a crash landing, not far from where the other glider had crashed. Sadly, the Norwegians were unable to reach the crash sites in time, and the survivors eventually came into the hands of the Gestapo and were all executed under Adolf Hitler's commando order. This part DICE got right. German soldiers were under orders to kill any British commandos they captured, even if they surrendered. And yes, this violated the terms of the Third Geneva Convention regarding treatment of prisoners of war. With the Germans now on alert, the surviving Norwegian commandos decided to hide out in the mountains and await further instructions from the Allies. They survived on moss and lichen during the winter until just before Christmas they were finally able to kill a reindeer. Since British authorities were aware that these commandos were still alive, they decided to mount another operation with them. On the night of February 16, 1943, Operation Gunnerside began with an additional 6 Norwegian commandos dropped in by parachute. They landed successfully and rendezvoused with the other Norwegians. The combined team then made final preparations for their assault on the plant, which was to take place on the night of February 27th or 28th, 1943. Following the failed attempt of Operation Freshman, the Germans had placed mines, floodlights, and additional guards around the plant. While the mines and lights remained in place, security of the actual plant itself had slackened somewhat over the winter months. However, the single 246-foot bridge spanning the deep ravine, 660 feet above the river Mana, was fully guarded. Thus, the force elected to descend into the ravine, ford the icy river, and climb the steep hill on the far side. Fortunately, the Allies had a Norwegian agent within the plant who supplied detailed plans and schedule information. The commandos used this information to enter the main basement by a cable tunnel and through a window. Inside the plant, the only person they came across was a Norwegian caretaker, who turned out to be very willing to cooperate with them. The team then planted explosive charges on the heavy water electrolysis chambers, and attached a fuse allowing sufficient time for their escape. The charges detonated, the electrolysis chambers were destroyed, and the commandos escaped, all without firing a shot or harming anyone. Now, remember that submarine that the mother had sacrificed herself in order to destroy the last shipment of heavy water? My guess is that its real-life counterpart was the SF Hydro, a Norwegian steam-powered railway ferry that operated on Lake Tinn in Telemark. Its primary purpose was to transport raw materials and fertilizer from the Norsk hydro plant across the lake to the port in Skien. The plant had begun to produce heavy water also, but the production area was located under 7 stories of reinforced concrete, so bombing it was out of the question. Eventually, the Germans canceled production there though, and decided to move the remaining heavy water supply to Germany. The resistance found out about this and moved to sink the SF Hydro, which was to carry the very last shipment of heavy water across Lake Tinn. And on February 20th, 1944, the SF Hydro was successfully sunk. But again, in this instance, we know it was a group of Norwegian men who sank it. The story is quite sad actually, because they went out of their way to minimize civilian casualties, and despite their best efforts, 14 Norwegian civilians were killed. I'm honestly a bit taken back by how brazenly DICE rewrote all of this. As far as I know, Operation Grouse, Freshman, and Gunnerside are common knowledge in Norway.
So you can see the issues of the game just in this one campaign being very blatant. You have 2 women who were never there, and I also found it curious that for some reason there were 2 women in the middle of nowhere, and also the mother and the daughter had different dialects. And for those who are unfamiliar with Norwegian, there are a lot of dialects, and back in the 1940s, Norway was a very poor country, and the infrastructure was lacking, to say the least. And it's very strange for a mother and daughter. I'm saying it's not impossible, just to make that clear, but it's highly improbable that the mother and daughter would have 2 different dialects, one from the western part of Norway and then the daughter from the eastern part of Norway. And also during the campaign, you have the daughter basically dropping into icy water. Now, I done that as part of my military training, and you would not survive as long as she did, and not experience hypothermia. She basically falls, or she overpowers a dude, or a soldier to be more correct, and then she still has the same clothes the day after when going skiing. The first thing you do, you take off all your clothes as fast as possible when you drop into cold water. And for them to claim to be authentic, this is very unrealistic, to say the least. And the entire campaign of the daughter of the story basically uh, take basically killing an entire camp of German soldiers is highly unlikely. It would be as close to impossible as it is to this measurement. And for you to, as a woman who to take out and stab and overpower men like that, even when you're suffering hypothermia, that is just so unrealistic. And and then the entire story also makes no sense. Battlefield has always prided itself to be authentic and to be realistic, but nothing of this story. The same goes for the French campaign and the Senegalese campaign. Which, if you're really interested in how inaccurate these stories are, please go check out American Krogan. He goes into depth into all of these stories, but it's historic revisionism and changing the historic facts to suit their own narrative. And I can also see this struggle within the multiplayer, where they've gone to be authentic to the world wars, like in Battlefield 1, where you had weapons that were used and also some prototypes which weren't really used during the First World War, but also having a fun gameplay with, for example, it's unrealistic to revive someone and or drop a crate and feed them ammo all the time, or same with health. But they've completely removed that aspect of the game and made it. I don't know if they wanted to be realistic, but it doesn't seem fun. So sorry, I had to clip that because my cat was screwing with the microphone. But yeah, it doesn't seem fun. You remove the entire need for the medic class and the support class, and it doesn't seem fun supporting, giving other ammo on your team, or trying to give them health. It doesn't seem to be as fun as it used to be. And there is no naval combat for some reason. The grand operations, I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but the grand operations were the most fun thing of Battlefield 1, and they screwed with it. Now they have Breakthrough, which is basically what used to be the operations, but there is no advantage for the attacking side, so you don't get backup or you do different rounds. That was part of the fun with doing these operations. Now you just switch maps, and don't let me start with the maps because there is lacking. The maps are lacking. There are fewer maps than Battlefield 1, and the verticality isn't there. They just don't seem that fun. I played a new map yesterday when I played Tides of War, but the spawning points, I played Conquest, and the spawning points between them, they were so far away, so you weren't basically killing anyone. You were just going from flag to flag, capturing them, and never killing anyone. And I I don't know what they were going for, because it seems they are going for to be more realistic, but then taking away the fun, and but also not being realistic as well. Just look at the story. It seems like there's some sort of internal conflict during the development, and either they had too short of time to, which I suspect is the case with Battlefield 5, or they didn't know what they were doing. And now they have said they're gonna do some free DLC, but I mean, right now the weapons are lacking, the maps are lacking. There's far, I mean, I would suspect there are half the guns in Battlefield 5 compared to Battlefield 1 at launch. And there is no incentive to upgrade them either, because you have this weird specialization system where you have basically 4 tiers and you choose one or the other. That's such a simplification of the entire system which they had in Battlefield 1, where you could choose what kind of aim you wanted, and I mean, they just suck the fun out of the game, in to replace it with what unnecessary new stuff. You can improve of what you have done previously, and not make it worse. Don't fix what ain't broken, and that's the exact opposite what Battlefield 5 has unfortunately done with this game, with the stories being horrible, the gameplay lacking. Well, the only thing that is fun is the gameplay, but how everything around it has been done, the progression system, playing a medic, but shooting and everything else is fun. The sound design is awesome. I mean, the gameplay itself is good, but being support or medic especially doesn't feel as significant of a change as it used to be. And something I noticed when I finished the Nurlis story, which is called Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, which it is called in Norwegian. The achievement, because I play it on PS4. Yes, I am a console peasant when it comes to this game. They misspelled the achievement for the Northern Lights for the Northern Lights trophy, and it says in Norwegian it says "Store fugler fanger inge fluger," and that makes no sense, because that is some gibberish between Norwegian and Swedish. So they misspelled that achievement for some reason. They couldn't even get someone to translate it properly, which is so stupid. And that's just one of the many things that is wrong with this game. I didn't buy it at full price. I refused. I'm still a fan of the franchise, but for anyone who is a fan of the game, don't buy it at full price. Get it at a bargain bin. Get it at a sale. It is not, especially now, it's not worth the price to pay full price for this game. There is so much lacking with this game, and the modes, the only modes they didn't screw up, I mean Breakthrough, but that was from Battlefield 1, but again they removed several rounds of that. And then you also have Conquest, which is fun, which I personally like. But the maps, they are lacking. Aerodrome, the air field, is the only map that is, in my opinion, at the moment worth playing and the most fun. I've seen Angry Joe. They've had a problem doing searches and just doing special playlists and searching for maps. So PC might have some problems with that. But anyways, that's my review. Those are my opinions about the game. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.